The purpose of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission's open meeting is for the Commission to consider the matters that have been duly posted in accordance with the Government in the Sunshine Act. Members of the public are invited to observe, which includes attending, listening, and taking notes, but does not include participating in the meeting or addressing the Commission. Actions that purposely interfere or attempt to interfere with the commencement or conducting of the meeting or inhibit the audience's ability to observe or listen to the meeting, including attempts by the audience members to address the Commission while the meeting is in progress, are not permitted. Any persons engaging in such behavior will be asked to leave the building. Anyone who refuses to leave voluntarily will be escorted from the building. Additionally, documents presented to the chairman, commissioners, or staff during the meeting will not become part of the official record, nor will they require further action by the Commission. If you wish to comment on an ongoing proceeding before the Commission, please visit our website for more information. Also, representatives from the FERC's Office of Public Participation are located just outside the Commission meeting room to assist the public with submission inquiries. Thank you for your cooperation.
Madam Secretary, we are ready to begin.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. This is the time and place that has been noticed for the open meeting of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to consider the matters that have been duly posted by the Commission. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Commissioners, since the November open meeting, the Commission has issued 55 notational orders. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you again, Madam Secretary. And it's going to be an emotional day for all of us today. Happy holidays, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope that you're enjoying this holiday season. We have a busy day today. We have a good agenda. I think everyone knows here that we also have two of our colleagues that sit up here at this dais who today is their last open meeting in their official capacities. And I think I speak for all of my colleagues when I say that we want to acknowledge you, recognize you, and I will preserve some time after the presentation today for everyone here to say a few words. So that I won't get myself off track, I'm going to move off of that right now and also move on to a few other matters. I have one personnel matter. Let me note that Robert Ferris from the Office of Energy Market Regulation is currently on detail in my office and will be covering for my advisor, Nicole Bucinelli, while she is on maternity leave. I want to say congratulations to Nicole and her family, and thank you to Robert for joining our team and for your support. We clap. You know, this is the final meeting, as I noted, for 2023. It also marks the end of the first year of my first year as chairman of the commission. And without saying too much, I want to say that it has been the honor of my career to serve as your chairman of FERC. And it's all because of the staff, the people here today who have focused and refocused on the mission of this place and of the goals that we set out back in January. And we've made significant progress on each of those fronts. And I thank you, all of the staff, for the work that you've done. 2024 is right around the corner. And so we know that we cannot rest, although I want you to get a little bit of rest over the holidays. We're going to immediately dive right in. And again, focus on the challenges that this commission faces and the industry faces. We're going to continue to look at ways to enhance our reliability. We're going to continue to look at ways that we can incorporate new resources in the changing resource mix. And I would like a renewed focus on resource adequacy in 2024. Also, regarding transmission, there are a couple matters that are still hanging out there that we need to address. We will continue to have a laser focus on those matters. I would also like to announce that I've directed staff to have technical conferences regarding interconnection queue reform. We're not done with that proceeding on issues like automation and other matters. So that will be coming in the near future. So I'm looking forward to the progress that we'll have together, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you. Turning now briefly to the agenda, I want to start with item E1, which is a notice of inquiry concerning the blanket authorizations for investment companies under Section 203 of the Federal Power Act. There are stakeholders who would like for FERC to take a look at the rules of the road related to blanket authorizations. I agree that we should examine them. However, an NOI is not about making immediate changes. It's about understanding whether our current framework still fits the dynamic nature of the financial investment sector and its effects on the energy markets. I welcome everyone's input and feedback on where we need to go in this proceeding. We will also hear from our colleagues today about Black Start availability, so I will preserve any comments or questions that I might have until after that presentation. With that, I will now turn to my colleagues. Commissioner Daly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As far as the agenda goes, just a brief mention of E1, which is the NOI for blanket authorizations. This is an important NOI, and the subject that I think would be most helpful to the Commission is for people to file comments regarding what types of control should get the Commission's scrutiny. There's good reason to believe that, in fact, this control question has not been perfectly adhered to, or at least not adhered to in the way that the Commission would have thought of when we originally implemented this program. And I don't simply mean formal types of control, but even soft control, we could call it, in which the kind of influence that investment companies can have over a public utility might violate the longstanding requirement that the Commission has to ensure that public utilities operate for the benefit of the ratepayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Clements.
Thank you, Chairman Phillips. Good morning. It's nice to see you all. Happy holidays from me as well. I think for some of us, it's a tumultuous holiday season. Certainly in the world it is, so it's nice to feel some spirit in the room this morning and to see so many people joining together. I also have one personnel announcement. I wanted to thank Emily Beard, who was on detail in my office from the Office of General Counsel. She has been helping out on various issues, and we're lucky to have her for a little bit longer, so thanks to her. This week, in addition to being the end of the first year of Chairman Phillips' term, is also the one-year anniversary of Winter Storm Elliott. As we all know, blanketed the eastern and central part of the U.S., an unprecedented number of generator failures and other issues pushing our system to the brink of collapse during the holiday season. So I think it's important that we step back and ensure we are absorbing and acting on the lessons from this event. And I will say I'm really pleased with how much the Commission has already done in response to these storms. Among other actions in February, we directed NERC to finalize cold weather reliability standards for generators. And as the joint FERC and NERC reports for both winter storms Uri and Elliott pointed out, freezing problems with generation caused a large number of outages. So I am watching with keen interest the status of the ongoing standards development process, which I understand is headed to a third ballot. And I hope that NERC is able to finalize and propose standards sufficient to ensure widespread winter generator outages do not impact customers in the same way again. Heading into the new year, I'm thinking about what's next as well. And I find myself coming back to this question of how do we plan for the future in the face of inevitable uncertainty, like the kind that we experienced during Elliott. While this uncertainty is indeed a challenge, it is not unbounded, and it must not paralyze us. I don't know what college looks like for my 9 and 11-year-olds, but I know I'm in trouble if I don't start planning for a few different outcomes at this point. As ever, transmission is at the front of mind in this issue. The Uri and Elliott reports, as well as our experiences in recent summer heat waves and countless credible studies, suggest an urgent generational need for regional and interregional transmission investment. When it comes to long-term planning, We already know that we won't be exactly right in forecasting the future. But the risk of inaction is far greater than the risk of planning without perfect foresight. Fortunately, we have powerful tools to light the path, from better data to even more sophisticated system modeling, to post-event examinations like the Elliott Report that help us then refine those planning techniques. The proposal we have outstanding on regional transmission planning and cost allocation is designed to make this uncertainty manageable. Robust, reality-based scenario planning is an effective risk management approach. We also have dockets open on interregional transmission, and I'm also pleased to hear you announce that we're going to do some workshops on further issues on interconnection. That's really exciting and important. So we've gotten a lot done this year. We've got our work cut out for us as a commission, and I'm looking forward to collaborating with my colleagues on these issues in 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Christie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll save some non-agenda item comments for the closing remarks. I'll save it for then. So let me just talk about a couple of agenda items. And I don't have any dissents today, but I'll mention a couple of concurrences. I have statements in. One is E1. This is the notice of inquiry about the blanket authorizations, and I'm glad we're doing this. I'm glad the chairman put it on the agenda. It is appropriate to look into this. It's important to understand that a public utility, which are oftentimes called a public service corporation under various state laws, have public service obligations. They're not like all the others. They're not just another company in a competitive market where you buy stock to get maximum return. A public utility has these obligations. Usually they're frequently a monopoly, such as your power company, your water company. And so these public service obligations can come into conflict with investors who have other goals. And this is why we have to look I'm not going to say skeptically, but we have to apply strict scrutiny when a huge asset manager like Vanguard or State Street or BlackRock is buying a big chunk of either the company itself or its holding company or a private equity. And it's because of the potential conflict between the public service obligations of, say, the electric utility or the water company and the investor. And so we have to look at that very closely. This NOI is about looking at whether FERC's practices are appropriate. You know, there's three things that can potentially go wrong. When you ask what can possibly go wrong, a lot of things can go wrong. One, of course, is that the private equity investor or the asset manager may have short-term profit goals to turn over a quick short-term profit, which are inconsistent with the long-term obligations of the public utility. There could be interlocking ownership of a tremendously large asset manager or private equity investor in terms of owning generation that is also potentially competing with another company owned by the investor. So this has to be looked at. And then, of course, there's the ESG issue, the environmental social governance, are the asset managers pushing policies that are not necessarily in the best interest of the utility. So yes, there is a potential conflict. It doesn't mean it's always a conflict. It doesn't mean it can't be resolved. It doesn't mean it can't be authorized for ownership because capital has to be raised. But I think it's great that we're looking at this. It's great that we're looking at whether or not we need to change the rules of the road in terms of how we do these authorizations under Section 203 of the Federal Power Act. So very good. I'm glad we're doing this. The other item I'm going to mention is E4, which is the PATH case. And it looks like a nothing burger, uncontested settlement of a long-running rate case that goes back almost 15 years. But believe me, it is not a nothing burger. There's a lot of lessons in this case. As Willie Loman's wife, Linda, said in Death of a Salesman, attention must be paid. And I would pay attention to this one. What happened in this one? This was, if you're old enough to remember, back in the mid-2000s, there was a big project called Project Mountaineer, and it was going to build 3 huge 765 kV lines from the Ohio Valley in West Virginia to East Coast load centers. And it was going to bring coal-fired power to the East Coast load centers. And those lines never got built. They ran into a firestorm of opposition. Well, PATH, the Potomac-Allegheny High Line, was one segment of one of those lines. It did get put into the PJM Regional Transmission Plan. And as soon as it got put in the Regional Transmission Plan, the RTAP, the developer began collecting money from consumers in PJM. And over the next 15, and FERC then, in its inimitable fashion, showered the project with an incredible array of incentives. RTO adder, QUIP, abandoned plant, you name it. There were no incentives this one didn't get. The bottom line on this, which we're wrapping up today after 15 years, consumers in the PJM region paid almost $250 million for a project that never got a single state approval. This line went through 3 states, West Virginia, Virginia, and Maryland. Was never approved for a CPC in it. But it went into the RTEP, so the developer collected $250 million came out of consumers' pockets. $250 million for what? Not an ounce of steel ever went in the ground. 3 lessons come out of this, okay? Number one, our incentives policy, as I've said repeatedly to the chagrin of a lot of groups, is way out of whack. It's totally unfair to consumers. It is totally way too generous to developers, and so we have got to look at these incentives that are being showered. And this is a classic example. PATH is a classic example. $250 million, people, for nothing. Okay. Second thing, formula rates. They got the money through formula rates, which is a system that FERC offers, where the developer files and there's already a presumption of prudence. So it's really not even contested. So lesson number 2, formula rate process is out of whack. Very unfair to consumers, okay? Number 3, this was a long-term regional project. When it was pushed, and it was announced here at FERC blessed it from the get-go, the Project Mountaineer. At that time, that was thought to be the next best thing. This is going to give us a 20-year, where's that number come from? A 20-year projection of what generation's going to be. Didn't work out, but the consumers paid for it for the next 20 years, and here we are. So the third lesson I would say is long-term regional planning is fine. Long-term regional planning is good. Long-term scenarios are good. States do it all the time through IRPs. But before a project goes into a regional transmission plan, like this one went into PJM's RTEP, before it goes into a regional plan, which starts the money flowing out of consumers' pockets, the states have got to be able to determine the criteria that puts it into that regional plan and the cost allocation. Otherwise, this PATH example, $250 million out of consumers' pockets throughout PJM for nothing, is only the first of many that we're going to see. So the states have got to be able to determine, are these projects really needed, and are these costs fair to our consumers? So 3 big lessons from PATH. It's not a nothing burger. It is definitely an omen. And I'm glad we're wrapping it up, but pay attention to it, okay? Just like Willie Loman's wife said, attention must be paid. Thanks. That's all I got.
Thank you, Commissioner. Madam Secretary, we are now ready to go to the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since the issuance of the Sunshine Act notice on December 12th, 2023, and corrected on December 13th, 2023, no items have been stricken from this morning's agenda. Your consent agenda is as follows. Electric items: E1, E2, E3, E4, E5, E6, E7, E8, E9, E10, E11, E12, E13, E14, E15, and E16. The gas item is G1. Hydro item, H1 and H2. Certificate items, C1, C2, C3, C4, and C5. Commissioner Danley is not participating in items E2, E3, E4, E5, E7, E8, E11, E13, G1, H1, H2, C1, C2, and C3. Commissioner Clements is not participating in items E14, E15, and E16. As to E1, Commissioner Christie is concurring with a separate statement. As to E4, Commissioner Christie is concurring with a separate statement. As to E7, Commissioner Christie is concurring with a separate statement. As to E10, Chairman Phillips and Commissioner Clements are concurring with a joint separate statement. As to E13, Commissioner Christie is concurring with a separate statement. As to C1, Commissioner Clements is dissenting in part with a separate statement. As to C4, Commissioner Danley is concurring with a separate statement, and Commissioner Clements is concurring with a separate statement. We are now ready to take a vote on this morning's consent agenda. The vote begins with Commissioner Christie.
Aye on everything.
And noting your concurrences.
Yes, and noting my concurrences in E1, E4, E7, E13.
Thank you, Commissioner Christie. Commissioner Clements.
Noting my joint concurrence with Chairman Phillips in E10, that I'm not participating in E14, E15, and E16, my dissent in part in C1, and my concurrence in C4. I vote aye.
Commissioner Danley.
Noting my concurrence in C4, my non-participation in E2, E3, E4, E5, E7, E8, E11, E13, G1, H1, H2, C1, C2, C3. I only have one separate statement. I think that's a first. I vote aye.
And Chairman Phillips.
Noting my joint statement with Commissioner Clements, I vote aye.
We're now ready to move to the discussion and presentation portion of this morning's meeting. This item is A3, concerning FERC NERC Regional Entity Joint Black Start and Next Start Resource Available Study in the Texas Interconnection. There will be a presentation by Chanel Chasanoff from the Office of the General Counsel, Robert Clark from the Office of Electric Reliability, David Till from North American Electric Reliability Corporation, and Mark Henry from the Texas Reliability Entity. You may begin your presentation.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. In November 2022, the team began its study into one of the worst-case scenarios for the Texas interconnection, a blackout. Any blackout imposes profound effects upon industry, business, community, and life, which would be compounded during an extreme cold weather event. During extreme cold weather events, both the electric and natural gas systems are more likely to be stressed and vulnerable to outages. Black Start system restoration plans are dependent upon Black Start resources, which are primarily generators capable of starting up without relying on power from the grid. These Black Start resources and associated Next Start resources are therefore critical components of a restoration plan for restarting electric service after a blackout. Ensuring their availability is paramount. This study was recommended by the 2021 report on Winter Storm Uri, which identified instances where Black Start resources were rendered unavailable during the event. The study focused on 9 voluntary industry participants made up of electric and natural gas entities that operate in the Texas interconnection. These participants were, without exception, exemplary in their cooperation, and the team commends them for their feedback, involvement, and contributions to the study. The Black Start Availability Study, which FERC, NERC, and the regional entities are jointly releasing today, assessed 1, the characteristics of Black Start and Next Start resources, 2, the characteristics of natural gas supply contracts and delivery infrastructure for Black Start and Next Start resources relied upon in Black Start system restoration plans. 3, the testing of Black Start resources and their fuel switching capabilities where applicable. And 4, the Black Start and system restoration operating personnel training practices, procedures, and resources. The team studied the participants' Black Start resource testing, fuel switching, fuel delivery infrastructure, fuel supply contracts, and the coordination between electric and natural gas entities. From these study observations, the team identified beneficial observed practices for consideration and made recommendations aimed at improving winterization and Black Start system restoration overall. The team views the study's recommendations as proactive to help all necessary entities preemptively plan for recovering from a blackout. While the recommendations in this study are voluntary and the study imposes no obligations beyond those required by the relevant reliability standards, the team strongly urges all entities that play a role in Black Start system restoration to implement the study's recommendations and observe beneficial practices. I will now pass it on to David Till from NERC to discuss the observed beneficial practices for consideration seen by the team.
Thank you. For the purposes of this study, observed beneficial practices for consideration refer to actions currently being performed by at least some of the participants in this study, whereas the recommendations refer to actions that are either not currently being performed or could be enhanced. The team observed that the participants have many practices and procedures pertaining to Black Start resource availability, testing, communication and coordination, and training that serve to enhance their preparation for a blackout. While they may not be universally applicable to all electric and natural gas entities, incorporating these observed beneficial practices where appropriate could add significant value and resilience to the electric and natural gas infrastructure. Some examples of these beneficial practices observed by the team include: 1, installing permanent winterization measures to minimize the use of temporary measures such as portable space heaters at generating resources. Permanent mitigation could limit the amount of annual maintenance required. 2, maintaining a list of Black Start capable resources not identified in Black Start system restoration plans that could be used during a blackout if other Black Start resources become unavailable. These Black Start capable units add resiliency, flexibility, and redundancy to Black Start system restoration plans. 3, performing expanded testing where feasible could confirm the viability of Black Start capability through coordination between Black Start resources and transmission entities. Expanded testing could be used to update system models and Black Start system restoration training programs. 4, considering the impacts of extreme cold weather on the operability and performance of backup batteries located on key communication paths and at critical transmission substations, and how battery life is impacted by cold weather. The study discusses these and additional beneficial practices observed by the team. I will now pass it to Robert Clark from FERC for a more in-depth review of the study's recommendations.
Thank you, David. The study has 7 total recommendations. These recommendations focus on: 1, Black Start system restoration planning and testing; 2, an assessment of natural gas availability to Black Start and Next Start resources, as well as improve electric natural gas coordination; and 3, the prioritization of natural gas supply and transportation to Black Start and Next Start resources. Effective Black Start system restoration requires the necessary electric and natural gas entities to work collaboratively across multiple jurisdictions and functional responsibilities to restore the system. The recommendations in this study are tailored to apply to all entities that play a role in Black Start system restoration, understanding that some entities may have a larger role than others in the development and implementation of a Black Start System Restoration Plan. While this study focuses on the Texas interconnection, the team believes that many of the study's recommendations could be beneficial to regions and entities outside the interconnection. Recommendation 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D apply to the entities responsible for developing and implementing a Black Start System Restoration Plan. Recommendation 1A advises these entities to examine the diversity of fuel, single points of failure, fuel arrangements, and other limitations of each Black Start resource. Fully understanding these elements would provide entities with insight into the likelihood of Black Start resource availability. This assessment could also help entities prepare for, mitigate, and respond to a blackout. Recommendation 1B states that these entities should evaluate and incorporate a wide variety of options into their Black Start System restoration plans. For example, entities should consider the use of electrical bypasses, high voltage direct current ties, variable frequency transformers, block load transfers, and non-fuel energy resources. During a blackout, these alternatives could add a diversity and resilience, particularly if natural gas to Black Start and Next Start resources is limited or unavailable. Recommendation 1C suggests that these entities incorporate off-site natural gas storage in their Black Start system restoration plans. The natural gas supply chain may be severely stressed or completely unavailable during a blackout. Stored natural gas may increase the likelihood of Black Start and Next Start resources being able to secure fuel more quickly and reliably in the event of a blackout. Recommendation 1D states that these entities should implement a testing requirement for Black Start resources to perform alternate fuel startup tests completely on alternate fuel. Performing these alternate fuel startup tests would confirm that dual fuel capable Black Start resources are able to start on alternate fuel during a blackout when external electricity sources and primary fuel is unavailable. Additionally, if testing requirements are already in effect, these entities should ensure that the requirements are clearly defined so that Black Start resources are able to perform these tests more effectively. I will now pass it on to Mark Henry for the final 3 recommendations.
Thank you, Robert. Commissioners, recommendations 2A, 2B, and 3 address an assessment of natural gas availability to Black Start and Next Start resources, improve coordination between the electric and natural gas industries, and the prioritization of natural gas supply and transportation. First recommendation 2 states that the appropriate state and other authorities with jurisdiction should facilitate and moderate engagement among the entities responsible for developing and implementing a Black Start system restoration plan. Next, recommendation 2A suggests that these authorities should assess the impact of a blackout on the natural gas supply chain with a focus on natural gas availability to Black Start and Next Start resources. This assessment could help the electric and natural gas industries better understand what action is required in a blackout and which electric and natural gas entities are vital for Black Start system restoration. Recommendation 2B states that the entities necessary for Black Start system restoration should develop a coordinated Black Start system restoration plan that incorporates the needs of both the electric and natural gas industries. The entities should work collaboratively to develop this plan and should prioritize the natural gas infrastructure required to supply natural gas to the Black Start, Next Start, and other essential resources. This plan could help ensure a more coordinated Black Start system restoration, again, between the electric and natural gas industries. Finally, recommendation 3 proposes that the appropriate state and other authorities with jurisdiction over developing and defining natural gas curtailment plans and standards should evaluate elevating the priority of natural gas supply and transportation to those Black Start and Next Start resources. The curtailment of natural gas to these resources could lead to their unavailability. Such an evaluation could help entities again ensure that natural gas supplies are prioritized and thus available to Black Start and Next Start resources when natural gas supplies are limited. I'll now hand it back to Chanel Chazanoff from FERC to give concluding remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. The team recognizes that there is a shared responsibility and need for the electric and natural gas industries to work together to plan for a blackout and to identify the necessary electric and natural gas entities that would need to perform a synchronized black start system restoration. To that end, the study's observed beneficial practices and recommendations aim to improve this coordination, collaboration, and planning between all the entities necessary for Black Start system restoration. This concludes our presentation. The Black Start study will be published later today and posted on the Commission's, NERC's, and Texas RE's websites. We are happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Thank you to the team for the presentation and to the study. These recommendations are important. It really gets to the heart of what we've been talking about all year, which is reliability and resilience. And I cannot underscore how important it is that everyone pay close attention to the work that you've done. I thank you for that. I just have one question. You mentioned, and I'll start with you, Robert, or whomever on the team wants to respond, stored gas, stored natural gas. And you mentioned this relationship to Black Start and Next Start resources. Can you tell us a little bit more? What is the role of stored natural gas in a Black Start situation?
So, during a blackout, the production and processing of natural gas may be limited or completely unavailable because these facilities are heavily reliant on electricity supply from the grid. So this could result in some fuel supply issues. To keep these facilities up and running during a blackout, the production and processing, the team believes it would be an exorbitant amount of coordination and planning needed. So how do we solve this fuel supply issue? Stored natural gas could be one solution. We have to identify all of the pieces, both on the electric and natural gas side, that are needed to move the gas out of storage and to the Black Start and Next Start resource. With that said, it's not going to be an easy task. It's still going to take an extremely high level of collaboration, coordination, planning by the electric and natural gas industries to accomplish this during a blackout.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you for the report to you and your colleagues. It was well researched, and I'm not surprised to hear that the participants were committed and in volunteering, because it came out with a good set of recommendations. I did pause on and want to note one aspect, and Robert, you talked to it. The report noted that in large part, at least during Uri, batteries were not in use in ERCOT as Black Start resources, despite their technical ability to perform. And I understand that ERCOT is taking steps on many fronts related to Black Start, so it's not an implication. The report also found that the use of grid-forming IBRs can effectively aid in Black Start restoration. And then you spoke about the resilience value when natural gas is unavailable for Black Start or Next Start. I think this is a really important point. We want to make sure that this commission is thinking about how we allow for these resources, and to the extent we need to take action to facilitate these resources, providing this critical grid service, that we're doing that. Certainly, as the report says, the value of these resources is only going to grow as the technology evolves. So I was really interested to read that and want to make sure that we're not leaving any of those tools, any of that broader set, in the toolbox when we might be able to take them out and use them. So thanks so much for the report.
Commissioner Christie.
No questions. Thank you for the report.
All right. I thank you to the team.
Mr. Chairman, we have nothing further on today's agenda.
Well, I have something further. I mentioned earlier at the top, we have a couple of our colleagues. This is their final meeting, and I'd like to start with Commissioner Danley to my right. Commissioner Danley has served many roles here at FERC. He has served as General Counsel, he has served as Commissioner, and he has served as Chairman. And I'm not sure a lot of people know this, but before Commissioner Danley came to the Commission, he also had a life of public service. He had a career. He served his nation as a U.S. Army officer completing tours in Iraq and receiving a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart. Commissioner Danley, on behalf of staff and all of the colleagues here, I have to say thank you for your service to FERC. Thank you to your service to this nation. And thank you for significantly adding to the discourse here at the Commission. So that, I want to present you with this item here. And this recognizes all of your service here at the Commission.
Thank you very much.
It's a little heavy. We should take a couple pictures. Don't go anywhere. As a former chairman, we also have for you the gavel. It has very handsomely stated James P. Danley, as well as a plate here on the strike.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
I would like to have an opportunity for my colleagues to say a few words, and Commissioner Danley, if you'd like to say a few words at the end, I don't know how to do that.
Well, thank you. You know, you all might not think that Commissioner Danley and I see eye to eye on very much substance at the Commission, and that's not totally true. I have this underappreciated and not off-cited joint dissent from June 4th, 2021. The Commissioner and I jointly dissented on a partial waiver request by the Michigan State University Board of Trustees. Now, whether or not it's because it was Michigan State asking for the waiver or because Commissioner Danley and I agreed, we did find common ground, and I think that's one thing that we do share, which is a commitment to the law, and how we both interpret it. That might be different, but I think he and his team have worked very hard over the years to expound upon that philosophy on the law, and certainly there's an impressive volume of writing to keep us on our toes, and that will last beyond your time here at the Commission. And I'd also like to say you come to the job with quite a sense of humor that keeps everybody on their toes, so we appreciate that. I think there's no higher service than serving your country in the ways you have, and so congratulations to you, best of luck. And best of luck to your team, who I hope gets a nice break over the holiday.
Commissioner Christie.
Okay. Before I came to the Commission, I talked to a couple of my predecessors and about what it was going to be like, and they said, well, we can tell you one thing. Don't ever get into an argument with James Danley about any point of law. Because he will be right. You won't, and he'll make sure that you know he's right, and you can't win. And that was good advice. James is a brilliant lawyer. I would never want to. If he was ever a judge, I would refuse to represent a client in front of him. I'd be scared to death because he is incredibly well versed on the law, and I probably never spent as much time arguing with somebody that I actually fundamentally agreed with. But he wouldn't let you agree with him. But ultimately, dealing with James comes down to, I always found it comes down to a phrase that came from the first Mayor Daley of Chicago, and the first Mayor Daley was the real Mayor Daley in terms of American politics. And Mayor Daley, master of the malapropism, once said at a press conference, he said, sometimes you have to just put principle aside and do what's right. And I found that was the only way to deal with James, because he was going to be right. But anyway, I want to say this about James, and the chairman mentioned this. James is a hero. He is an American hero. He served our country in Iraq as an Army officer. Came back with medals, including the Purple Heart medal, which is, if you know anything, you get it for wounds. So James is a hero. I can't express, as a former Marine, I can't express enough my admiration for what he did for this country in Iraq, the service he gave. And so, more than anything, I just want to drive that point home, that James is James is an American hero for what he did for this country in his military service, and I will be everlastingly admirable to that. So, and James, we're going to miss you, and I'll probably save some energy in arguing, but I know better than to argue with you. But thank you for your service, and thank you for being truly thank you for being an American hero. I appreciate that.
The floor is yours, Commissioner Dale.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. I usually don't say all that much during the commission meetings unless I really feel that it's necessary, so this is likely to be the longest speech that I'm ever going to give during an open meeting, but it won't be that long. I will mention that it's nice to have this gavel here. I was chairman during COVID when we did all of our meetings remote, and I didn't have a gavel, and so I actually used a shoe to gavel in the meetings. And I thump it on the desk that I was sitting at. That's actually true. I've been at the commission for over 7 years now, and I've seen it from the standpoint of staff and as a commissioner. And throughout 7 years, there are an awful lot of people that help both a general counsel and a commissioner accomplish their duties. And my little office of 5 advisors and I have managed to produce hundreds and hundreds of separate statements that run to the thousands of pages all told. That is an immense amount of effort and labor. And without my advisors having taken the laboring oar and all of that, of course, that wouldn't have been possible. So there are a handful of people that I need to recognize for all their contributions to my work over the last 7 years. So I begin with my wife Frankie and my son James. I think often people don't realize the amount of privation that we expect the spouses and children of public officials to suffer while they're working. I've been constantly traveling. The life of a commissioner is one of often reaction and tight deadlines, especially when people are trying to respond to my dissent. So I apologize to your spouses and children too. But they deserve the lion's share of the credit for having suffered through this for years with me. So my sincere thanks to both of them. I want to thank my colleagues on the commission, of course, because this is a collegiate body whose work is done deliberatively. And in particular, among the commissioners I've served with, I want to thank the two who aren't here, Bernie McNamee and Rich Glick. Rich and I had a contentious relationship, but as I said a year ago, he kept my job interesting for a long time, and he was, as chairman, very courteous, and I actually enjoyed working with him more than I think people would probably think from the outside. So I just wanted to reiterate that to keep the record straight. Also, it's worth giving special mention to the two chairmen whom I served as general counsel, Neil Chatterjee and Kevin McIntyre, and also the chief of staff for whom I worked as general counsel, Anthony Pugliese. There are also members of the commission staff that have been with me from the day that I showed up, and the most important of whom is David Morenoff, whose wise counsel I have relied upon for over 7 years now, and I'm realizing that the day is going to come shortly where I can't just call up David and say, what am I supposed to do? Yeah. Right. I'm really going to miss him. There's also Charles Beeman, who is our Deo and is a truly good man, and he deserves an immense amount of credit for doing all of the thankless work that the Office of General Counsel has, and I think Matt will agree that that is the role of the head of GAL. It is a thankless job, and I really appreciate it. Also, his deputy, Marcus Araus, who I think is just first rate. There's Kim Bose, who's leaving too. She is the consummate professional, and her departure will not be able to be replaced. Terry, the head of OEP, who is the long-suffering, overworked, and universally underappreciated, including by me, head of OEP. I want to say thank you, but instead I'm going to say I'm sorry. And that's not just a joke. I really do mean it. So Tegan Flynn, who I guess worked for me briefly when I was chairman. She now works for Commissioner Christie. She is one of the most principled lawyers I've ever encountered. There's Susie Holmes, who was and still is the head of the project section of OGC, who is not just delightful, but is a woman who gives thoughtful, wise counsel. There's John Katz, her deputy, who gives excellent advice, and more importantly than that, the best repartee in OGC. And so I really appreciate that. Mary O'Driscoll, I'm not getting into details, but thank you for everything. Joe McClelland, a man whose overweening enthusiasm, I guess we could say, is not so much a bug as a feature, and is a testament to his genuine dedication to his portfolio. And when I was in OGC, I have to recognize John Shepard, the indefatigable lawyer who has taught me so much over the years about utility law. Nick Glad, who is just a first-rate appellate litigator. And of course, Mercedes and Carrie, my executive assistants when I was general counsel, managing the work of an entire office of 200-plus lawyers. And then for my time as a commissioner, Mike Smith, who was my first confidential assistant and was just an enormous asset when he worked for me. I've missed him since he left. Hannah, who replaced him, and my advisors as commissioner and chairman, the ones that took the laboring oar I mentioned, who were drafting those separate statements of mine, the thousands and thousands of pages. You could fill a bookshelf with it at this point. Matt Estes, whom I first met as an associate at Skadden, he literally taught me markets in that he had an instruction module that he taught to all of the new associates, and in fact continued teaching it when he got to the commission, and to all the new lawyers that came to OGC. I can't express the amount that I owe to Matt. Paul White, another Skadden lawyer who has the distinction of being the first boss as a lawyer that I absolutely had a catastrophic legal error for, and won't get into the details. You can ask me about it at the Christmas party maybe, but it was, I still cringe to think about how bad that was, so I apologize. Rebecca Michael, she is a consummate professional, and she knows more about reliability than I ever would or could, or will or could. And she's also the moral, and she's the moral center of our office, and without her I can't imagine how it would work. Carolyn Clarkin, she's been an ally of mine through ups and downs for years at the commission, and I owe her a great deal for all the years while she's been on the 11th floor. And Kirsten Wallach, who's the most detail-oriented and tireless, and when I say tireless, I mean absolutely tireless lawyer that I've ever met. There are also a couple of others who have been, who worked for me for short periods of time, Michael Schnibben, Adam Bednarzik, and Madeline DeGeorge, all of whom have contributed in one way or another. And then there's Austin Lapari, my confidential assistant, who should be the man teaching the class on how to be the perfect confidential assistant. I owe him a great deal for the dedication and his good-natured willingness to take on the quotidian and thankless tasks of a commissioner's office. So thank you, Austin. And then lastly, the protective ops team. So it's unapparent, I think, to most of the public how important they are in our lives. We spend an immense amount of time with them, and they work on really difficult schedules, and they are an asset that this agency has. I would love to spend time telling stories about Brian's irrepressible exuberance or the way Zach can't drive. Again, those are stories for the Christmas party. I'll just highlight Mark Radlinsky and Duard Massey, the two protective ops officers we had at the very beginning and with whom we established the program, and two friends of mine. So that is the list of thank yous. I guess I will simply end with the observation that the commission does immensely important work. we are responsible for a profound, well, we have a profound responsibility in overseeing the gas and utility systems of America. And it's been an honor of a lifetime to serve in these capacities in an agency for which I have genuine affection. So thank you to my colleagues. Thank you to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We're not done yet. Now, in the truest form of a bittersweet moment, I would like to turn to Madam Secretary Kimberly Bose one last time. You know, when I went to our executive director, Anton Porter, and I said, I want to recognize Secretary Bose on her last meeting. I want to give an award. And this is, and I agree with Commissioner Danley, she's the consummate professional and loved by all. I said, well, what award should I give? And he said, I'm going to be honest with you, I think she's received every award at the commissioners. And I think that's true. But I can tell you, she is an institution here at FERC. She's had 37 years of federal service. You couldn't pay a person to say a bad thing about Secretary Bose. She's a legal giant here in our energy bar and at the commission. She served in OGC for many years as well. You know, and these aren't things that I'm saying. We had a retirement celebration for her just a few days ago, and this is what her colleagues who've known her for years and years had to say. And I can tell you it's nothing but the truth. And so what I want to do is I want to give you 2 awards today. Number one, a Career Service Award in recognition of your 37 years of service, and the Chairman's Medal. Career Service Award. Let me also say this, and this can't be overstated. Secretary Bose, she attended one of the best institutions in all of the country. She went to Howard University School of Law. Some of you know the same school that I attended. And this is why I say, why I mention Howard in this moment. What I appreciate about Secretary Bose is the example that she has set for members of the Howard University community, in particular, attorneys of color throughout the energy bar. If you wrote, and someone said this at your going away service, that if you write to the commission any type of application, any kind of filing, you directed that to Secretary Bose. So all of us knew you before we met you, and your reputation, it precedes you. And I just thank you for the example, for being a mentor to me, the advice you provided, and being just the outstanding human that you are. Thank you.
I'll pay you for that later.
All right, I'll now turn to my colleagues and Commissioner Danley for the last time. Commissioner Danley.
So you just saw with her gesture the regality with which Kim has conducted herself over the years. It's worth pointing out to people who may not know the internal mechanics of OSEC that it is the linchpin of the way the commission does its actual business, right? We issue orders that then affix rights as between parties before us, right? It is OSEC that does the actual doing of putting out words on paper for people to read. And having a secretary who has the judgment that she has and the clarity of her office's mission that Kim has had, and also the fact that there is not a single person that's ever encountered her that doesn't think that she is acting with the best of goodwill and perfectly honorable intentions, that is a reassurance that every commissioner has to have, and OSEC is an institution that is utterly reliable and unimpeachable, and that is because of Secretary Bose. We truly are going to lose a lot when she departs. Thank you so much for everything.
Commissioner Clements.
I'll add my thanks, Secretary Bose. You are an inspiration. Your intelligence, your wisdom that goes along with it, your kindness, and your grace. And I think most people know you started as a legal intern here 37 years ago. You probably didn't have anyone to look to on this dais like you. And now to think that you're inspiring our legal interns as they come in, that there is an opportunity to grow into the leadership role that you have at the commission is really important. So thank you.
Commissioner Christie.
The chairman said your reputation precedes you, and that is literally true. And I want to tell a story. About a month before I came to FERC, I went in to see my doctor in Richmond. And she said, hey, I hear you're going to this agency in Washington called FERC. And I said, yeah, how do you know about FERC? It's not in your specialty. And I hope not. And she said, oh, the secretary of FERC, Kim Bose, was my college roommate. I said, really? And then she proceeded to tell me what a wonderful person Kim Bose is and was as a college roommate, and how much I was going to enjoy knowing her and working with her. And my first thought was, well, if college roommates talk this way about each other, they must have really gotten along. But I will say this, Kim, everything that Pam Royal told me about you is absolutely true. You are a wonderful person, and it's been a joy to get to know you. And I wish you the best in whatever comes next. And you've just been a consummate professional running the office, and I think FERC is going to just miss you tremendously. I know I will. So best wishes, and everything Pam said about you is absolutely true. And it was all good, and you're the best. And so we're just going to miss you.
Thank you, Commissioners. I will give the final word to Secretary Bose.
It's interesting because I just said yesterday that the Secretary gives no impromptu comments. Just said that. So much to say, but I will keep my comments or my rebuttal comments short to say all of the wonderful things that so many have said. I could not do the things that the Office of the Secretary does, from the due process piece to the order piece to the document repository piece to the records management piece to the agenda minutes piece without my amazing, brilliant staff. And if they are here, I would like for them to stand. And I want to thank FERC for an amazingly blessed career. And my final comment is to you, Chairman Phillips. Absolutely, to your point, Commissioner Clements, when I came in as a legal intern, thank you for mentioning that. Not a lot of people know that. I never did think that someone would sit on at this horseshoe that looked like me. And even more so, I never thought that we would see a black chairman of the commission. So I am so grateful that you are here, and I'm so grateful that I was here to see that. So thank you, I appreciate it.
Can't top that. Everybody have a great holiday. This meeting is adjourned.
I started to reach everybody's hand.